Welcome to Quarantine Chronicles number 21. You love to see it. I hope that you have all been enjoying this wonderful weather that we've finally been having after what felt like 1,000 years of cold, rainy days. You can finally get yourself up, get yourself moving around. Maybe you can venture out into the forest and find a giant mechanical friend who you convince everybody around you is really harmless. He's just misunderstood. Maybe that's just the plot of Iron Giant. Got a pretty good joke for you today. My neighbor and I recently became pretty good friends, and we decided to share a space where we can park our cars. It's been great, because now we have a lot in common. Like a parking lot. Like a lot. A parking lot. I've had better jokes, I'll admit it, but you take what you can get. You guys really don't understand. In this room right now, it's just me and this camera. To have told this many jokes with no one laughing makes me pretty excited for when we can get back together, to say the least. Today in Romans 8, we're gonna jump into a verse that you've heard 1,000 times. You probably see it in your friends' Instagram bios. You probably hear it used out of context all the time. We're gonna break it down here on Quarantine Chronicles episode 21, Romans chapter 8, verses 28, 29, and 30. Last time we talked about how the Spirit prays for us in response to what our new definition of hope says. And our new definition of hope is built on the idea that creation groans with us for the redemption to be made full. And the idea that we have of redemption comes from this idea that we are being adopted into the family of God. And that idea of adoption comes from the idea that the Spirit of God lives in us, the same Spirit who raised Christ from the dead. So we have gone through this sort of sequence of ideas, which brings us to verse 28, which goes like this. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. Guarantee you've heard that before. For whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he predestined, these he also called. Whom he called, these he also justified. And whom he justified, these he also glorified. So let's start in verse 28. Because verse 28 presents us with something that is at once completely and fully comforting, right? That everything works together for the good of those who love God. But we have to understand that just like everything that we've talked about is in response to what came before it, this also is in response to what came before it. So what specifically is Paul referring to when he says that all things work together for good to those who love God? This is what he's referring to. Back up to verse 18. I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed in us. That glorious revelation, that the revealing of hope, the glory that was to be revealed in us is something that was brought up in response to the sufferings of this present age. The sufferings of this present age were also the topic of conversation in verse 1 when it says, there is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Because that was said in response to what ends in chapter 7 of how can I escape this body of death, right? I am so prone in my flesh to sinfulness that it's completely frustrating and almost debilitating. That's been an undertone for this whole chapter. And now it brings us to verse 28. All things work together for good to those who love God. That's talking about our suffering. Now, what is this not saying? It's not saying that suffering is a good thing. Suffering is a direct result of the sinfulness and the evil that exists in the world today. You would not suffer if Adam and Eve had never sinned. That's just the facts. But God, in his infinite love for us and in his infinite wisdom, he takes the suffering that we endure and he uses it for good. God takes the sufferings that we endure and he triumphs over them, and in the process glorifies himself in us by overcoming the sufferings that we deal with, and in turn redeems the evil in our lives for good. Our suffering isn't useless, and it's not ultimately tragic. It's painful, it's difficult to go through, but God stands sovereign over our suffering. And so when we suffer, you're right, it's not great. You do not love to see it, but God stands powerful over it, knowing that this will ultimately work out for the benefit of your soul. So, as we go from verse 28, we now enter into verse 29 and 30. So he says this, For whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed into the image of his Son. Now, let me start here. This video would have to be 45 minutes long if I was talking about predestination. That's another topic for another time. For whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. If you are God's, if you belong to God through salvation, then he's going to conform you into the image of Christ. So ultimately, that's really saying kind of the same thing as like James chapter 1 says, that the trials of your faith are a means by which your faith gets better, refined, improved. That same idea exists right here. And so then you get into verse 30. Moreover, who he predestined, he also called. And those who he called, he also justified. And those who he justified, he also glorified. Now here's something you gotta notice. There's like 3 groups here. You can call them groups. There's no one that's in one of those groups who isn't also in all 3 of those groups. Okay, this is saying that like if you're in one of these, you're everything. If you have been called, then you've also been justified, and ultimately you will be glorified. This is not saying that like you gotta work really hard to get from one category to the next. It's saying that if you're here, you're also there, and you're also there. So now that we're 30 verses deep in Romans 8, here's a little bit of a summary. If you are in Christ, you have the Spirit of God within you, and sin can no longer condemn you. You can still be working through your flesh because, hey, I don't know if you know this, you're still in your flesh, but sin does not condemn you. And so as you walk into the Spirit, you will see that there is this longing in creation to be redeemed into what God has intended for us to be redeemed into. And so as you begin to see that hope of redemption, you start to re-understand what hope is. And as you re-understand what hope is, you get to a better understanding of what the Spirit is. And so now that we understand a little bit more about the Spirit, we get to see here in verse 28 that the thing which pointed us to this revelation of hope, that is the sufferings of this world, the battle against our flesh, the battle against death, is ultimately going to be resolved. But that doesn't mean we don't suffer in the process. But fear not, because God triumphs over your suffering. Works it for your good. Not necessarily your fleshly good. You're not going to get more money in your pocket because of it. You're not going to get taller or prettier or cooler. But God is looking for the contents of your soul to be conformed into the image of Christ. And that's your good. Coming up, we got a return to the game called Drawing a Blank. We're going to call up a couple of our friends with their siblings, put them head to head in a game that we call Drawing a Blank. I'm going to give them a news headline with a word missing, and they got to guess which word it is. So, let's see how we do. Alright, here we go. Here is number 1. After a release of a study that showed that they enjoyed listening to music, Spotify has created a playlist for blank.
80s.
I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and say birds.
Birds. Okay, Niall, how about you?
We could say anything, right?
You can say anything.
Coronavirus.
Coronavirus. So, after the release of a study that showed that they enjoy listening to music, Spotify has created a playlist for the 80s, birds, and coronavirus. I'm gonna give this to Sage. The answer is dogs. There was a study that showed that dogs enjoy listening to music, so Spotify created a playlist so dogs can listen to music when their owners leave the house.
I actually almost said animals.
I mean, listen, you were still the closest, but I really do like the answer coronavirus. I like a coronavirus themed playlist. You'd probably have to include the song Down with the Sickness, right?
Right.
I dig it. Alright, so Sage is in the lead. It's 0 to 1 to 0. It's still anybody's game though.
Teenagers? Is it just one word?
It is just one word.
Oh, rough. I bet you it is.
We're getting a little help from our older sister.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna go with kangaroos.
I'm gonna go with the obvious answer and go apes. Well, they are the most human-like.
Wait, does Savannah want to give an answer here?
Savannah, what's your answer?
Cats or dogs?
Savannah says cats or dogs, but it's not apes or kangaroos.
Well, okay, then Savannah gets the point because it is dogs. Spotify got news of a study that showed that dogs enjoy listening to music. So Spotify has created a playlist that you as a dog owner can put on play, leave your house, and your dog will be like, hey, this is great.
That's amazing, actually.
Kind of crazy, right? So I guess Savannah gets that point.
All right, congrats.
So in a game between Kayla and Sarah, it is still 0 to 0.
Or monkeys?
Okay, Madison says monkeys. How about you, Logan?
Or parrots?
Parrots. I like that you both guessed animals, but by virtue of Madison picking a mammal, I'm going to give her the point. The headline says this, that after the release of a study that showed that they enjoy listening to music, Spotify has created a playlist for dogs.
Oh.
They've created a playlist for when you have a dog and you leave your house, you can leave this playlist on and your dog will enjoy it while you're gone.
That's Secret Life of Pets, the first movie.
Secret Life of Pets, exactly, yeah. We'll have dogs listening to news podcasts, all sorts of crazy things. All right, so that puts Maddie in the lead by a thin margin of 1 point. Logan, this is still anybody's game. You're still in it, brother. Are you guys ready for number 2?
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go. A rugby player in New Zealand was asked by his doctor to stop using blank.
Twitter?
Logan says Twitter. I like it. Maddie, how about you? What do you say?
Facebook.
Facebook. I'm gonna give it to Logan here. You guys were both really, really close, but here's the answer. A rugby player in New Zealand was asked by his doctor to stop using TikTok.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Logan, you came right out of the gate with Twitter. That was very funny.
I didn't really understand the question. I was like, wait, what?
You almost
that
had
makes
it.
sense.
Gloves.
Gloves. Okay, I dig it, Adara. How about you, Sage?
Ibuprofen.
Ibuprofen. Hey, could make the news. Niall, how about you? What are you thinking?
Medicine? I don't know.
Medicine? It's too close to Sage's answer.
Oh, I got it. Masks.
Masks. Okay, so we got gloves, we got ibuprofen, and we got masks. I gotta say, I'm not sure who's the closest on this one. I'm gonna give you guys the headline, and then you guys can decide amongst yourselves who you think was closest.
Okay.
A rugby player in New Zealand was asked by his doctor to stop using TikTok.
I like that.
There's medicine.
It's totally mine.
No, that's
Yeah, because
It's medicine.
kind of.
it's not mine.
See, I don't want to give it to Sage, because Sage has already got 1 point. You know what? I'm going to stick up for Adara here. I'm going to give Adara the point. So it's 1 to 0. But hey, Niall, you still have an opportunity to tie this up.
I feel like it's gotta be more out there.
I don't know, a ball, a racket, maybe a racket, or whatever they call that thing. Savannah's like, something sounds super dumb. What's your answer? Savannah says headbutt.
I'm gonna go with stop using his brain.
Yeah, stop using his head or something like that.
So I don't know what to do here. The answer was a rugby player in New Zealand was asked by his doctor to stop using TikTok. Is the answer. Because here's why. The rugby player injured his leg. He sustained an injury to his leg, and there are all of these dances on TikTok that you're supposed to like make your video of the dance, and he keeps re-aggravating his leg injury because he keeps doing these TikTok dances.
Oh man.
I guess it remains 0 to 0 then.
It kind of listen. I'll give each of you 1 point so that it's still tied, but at least I'll give you 1 to 1. You were both neither one of you was really closer than the other, so we'll just give it to you both. All right, here's number 3. Here's the best one, and hopefully we will have a winner at the end of this round.
Hopefully.
Number 3. A 5-year-old driving a car was pulled over in Utah, claiming that he was on his way to buy a blank.
I bet you it's to buy a car.
Kayla says a car. Sarah, how about you?
I don't know. A gallon of gas.
A gallon of gas?
I don't know. I got nothing.
Savannah, do you have an answer?
She's drawing a blank. She says a bottle of blinker fluid.
Nice. Very good meme content. Kayla's gonna get this one almost on the dot.
Okay.
Here's the headline. You ready? A 5-year-old driving a car was pulled over in Utah, claiming he was on his way to buy a Lamborghini.
That's adorable.
Yeah, but in the police report, he was like, I think he was gonna be a little short on money, given he only had $3. Pretty great. Listen, the good thing is that no one got hurt, and now we get to laugh about it.
Candy.
Logan's gonna say candy.
A chocolate bar.
Ooh, he's specifying now.
A car.
Maddie's saying a car. Maddie, you're gonna get it.
Really?
He literally was on his way to buy a car. Specifically, a Lamborghini.
Oh my god.
A 5-year-old driving a car was pulled over in Utah, claiming he was on his way to buy a Lamborghini. The police pulled over what they thought was an impaired driver, realized that it's a 5-year-old who wanted to go buy himself a Lamborghini. He was a little short on money. He only had $3 in his wallet. He was on his way to buy a Lamborghini. I'm so proud of you, Maddie. You got that right on the money.
Well, I figured, I mean, who would want to just go buy a car?
How could a kid drive a car?
That's definitely the craziest part of this whole thing. How is he reaching the gas pedal and the steering wheel and seeing over the dashboard? It's truly amazing.
Maybe he hit his growth spurt early.
You can't rule it out. The kid was driving a car.
It's crazy.
It was amazing.
Wait, is anything weird?
I mean, it's not that it's necessarily weird, but an ordinary 5-year-old would not be looking to buy this.
Alright, I got a guess.
All right, let Adaro go first.
Keys.
Keys. On his way to buy keys. How about you, Sage?
A phone.
A phone. Okay. Nice and modern. So we got keys, we got a phone. Niall, what are you thinking?
Candy.
Candy. I dig it. I dig it. Listen, if I'm 5 years old and I were to jack my parents' car, candy might be high on my list. So I understand where you're coming from. Are you guys ready for the greatest headline I think I've ever seen?
Yeah.
A 5-year-old was driving a car in Utah, was pulled over, and claimed that he was on his way to buy a Lamborghini. So I'm gonna give it to Adara for keys, because you use keys in a car. It's an absolutely insane story.
Okay, he could buy a Matchbox car Lamborghini.
Could buy a Matchbox Lamborghini, but they pulled him over. They were like, we think that this is an impaired driver, when it turns out kid was only 5 years old. I don't even know how he reached the gas pedal.
How do you even like see over the steering wheel?
Get a high seat.
It's beyond me, but hey, maybe in a Lamborghini all those troubles would be solved. So maybe that's what he was on his way to do. Last but not least, I want to hear from all three of you. What's one strange, unordinary thing that you guys have started doing because of the quarantine?
Okay, so we got an app on Adara's iPod called Video Shop, and we started making music videos with it.
Oh, sick! What songs?
A bunch of like hair bands from the 80s.
No way.
Yeah, like Bon Jovi, Scorpions.
That's awesome.
We did Take On Me.
Yeah, you did. That's awesome.
I mean, there's nothing really been too crazy because you've been stuck inside all day. But
We went to the beach not so long ago, but I know that's not weird. I'm just trying to think.
maybe like walking our dog more or something.
We like never get outside, and we've been going outside a lot more.
Nice.
Especially if we want our pool and our sprinkler.
Getting that sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
Logan, you're gonna be nice and tan, dude.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
I knew something like this was coming. I should have prepared better. I helped my dad. We have this old gazebo that was like really big, and then the roof got totally ruined. And so we have reconstructed it to become a miniature gazebo that will fit my mom and my dad alone.
The Baggy V gazebo.
Wow. Very selfless of you to repurpose something that used to fit you into something that will no longer fit you when you're done. Very selfless.
Well, thank you.
I guess I really got into acrylic painting. I'm not sure that counts as weird, but...
Hey, Lo, we take it. Can you display one of your creations?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, go grab one.
Oh.
Oh my gosh! Kayla, that's sick! You've really got like an impressionist thing going on.
Yes.
Like a Monet sort of thing where like when you step back, all of the colors become like the same. It's really good. You love to see it. Well, I love it. I loved it. I love it all. Thank you to the Johnsons, the Scotts, and the Stanzels for playing Drawing a Blank today. And thank you to you for watching the video. Make sure you tune in next Monday. And until then, stay healthy.